Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. One of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So sit back, grab yourself a cold one and a Polish sausage, park your keister in the French room, and listen to Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski, Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your hosts, Alex and Sean. On this episode, we are going to be talking about Bears schedule. We're going to be recapping some Last Dance, maybe talking NHL and MLB, possibly starting up again, probably some shenanigans here and there. But first, I'd like to thank our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. Sure, the season isn't going on right now because nothing's going on right now, but that shouldn't stop you from heading on over to icehogs.com, picking up a hat, shirt, jersey, signing up for season tickets next year, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Alex, I hope you've been staying corona-free.
So far, so good. Just hanging in there, still working from home, no target date to return to the office yet. You know, it's kind of funny. I've been so used to working from home now because it's been like 2 months since we've started working from home permanently at our company. It just almost feels normal at this point to be working from home. So returning to the office might feel weird in itself whenever that happens, but I don't think it's going to be for a little bit.
I know. Finally having to put pants on.
I know. I know.
I'm just waiting for the bars to open back up and everybody just walking up going, "Let me get a Corona, hold the virus." And then the bartender just looking at him with the face.
Honestly, if I owned a bar, I'd say, okay, anyone who makes that joke has to leave.
You're out.
You're out of here. You're out of here.
We're going to launch you. We're going to test drive the catapult that they're going to launch Boylan out of on you.
Yeah, we gotta make sure the trebuchet works.
We got to make sure it launches you far enough.
Sorry, I don't make the rules. That's just the protocol that's been put in place.
Yeah. It's just the Bulls front office was very adamant that we try this out. So what are we going to do?
Yeah, exactly. There's, I don't take glee, though I kind of do. So just do it. We got to do it. So you made the joke, get in. And then at the count of 3, I will cut the ceremonial rope to put the...
I was worth it.
Thud splash. I have a question for you. A very, very important question.
Okay.
What do you think is potentially worse? Bills fan puke or poisoned Michael Jordan pizza puke?
It's got to be Bills fan puke. Bills fan puke might be one of the worst things I've ever seen. And this is I watched a facelift one time on TV. I had like a surgery of doing a facelift, and not on purpose. When I was in college, I went to a friend's house and his roommate was just sitting there watching it, and I'm like, "Oh, what are you watching?" And he goes, "Surgery Channel." And I'm just staring at. Basically, they literally cut your face off and then pull it up, like just yanking if your pants are falling down around your butt, like you pull
like
them
the
up.
Movie Face Off with Nicolas Cage and John Travolta.
That movie is so terrible, but if it's on TV, I'll be like, "Yeah, I'll watch it."
It's a movie that is just a classic. We're not saying it's good or realistic, but it's a classic.
It's like any Nicolas Cage movie.
Yeah,
You're just like, man, this is terrible. All right, let me watch this.
Like the National Treasure movies, love watching those. Whenever they're on cable, I'm watching it.
Con Air.
Con Air.
Did I ever tell you the time I met Nicolas Cage?
I don't think so.
So I met him, and it was at San Diego Comic-Con several years ago, and they were doing a lottery for a chance to meet him and get an autograph. It was for the movie Drive Angry, which I've actually never seen. But
I've never seen it either.
they only there was like 70 people could win out of 100,000 plus that were there. I win. And they're like, you can't, like the security people, you can't look at him, you can't talk to him, you can't, make eye contact, blah, blah, blah. So literally walk up there and I was like, hey, you're my mom's favorite actor. And he looks up and he goes, your mom's got good taste.
That's awesome.
I was like, all right, there we go.
That is awesome. I would love to meet Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage.
I have a Nicolas Cage shirt my friend gave me. It's the many faces of Nicolas Cage. And it's like, him doing the you don't say face, which he doesn't actually say in that scene, by the way. It's him like where like the wind is blowing against him. He's got long hair. It's got the one where he's in Wicker Man and he's going not the bees with the cage around his face.
Have you ever seen the movie Mandy?
Mandy, I don't think so.
I think it came out like a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years at this point, but maybe a year and a half ago. It is, it is an out there movie, but it is literally the most Nicolas Cage has ever been. It's like, how Christopher Walken at some point stopped being Christopher Walken and just started doing an impersonation of Christopher Walken.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of what Nick Cage is in this movie. He's just like he watched all of the ridiculous things about Nicolas Cage and was like, I'm going to do an impersonation of that as Nicolas Cage. And it's so over the top. Like there's just one scene, he's in the bathroom in his underwear and a shirt with a tiger on it and in a bottle of liquor. He's just screaming, oh!
I gotta watch this.
It is such an out there movie. Like, I don't know if there's any way to watch it not being on some sort of psychedelic drug and get it. But I watched it and I was just like, man, this is Nicolas Cage. It is Nicolas Cageiest.
Have you ever seen the movie Knowing with Nicolas Cage by any chance?
I have not.
So it's like where like he discovers this code that predicts like every disaster that's going to happen and eventually like the end of the world happens. And it's like, okay, the premise is actually kind of interesting. But like it just gets so ridiculous at the end that it just gets really, really bizarre. It's a movie that like I'm going to say, okay, I'm not going to say you're going to like it or think it's good, but like just watch it. Like that's all I can say is just watch it because I feel like everyone kind of has to experience that movie.
Huh.
Whether or not you like it or not.
He's got a new one that just came out not too long ago called The Color Out of Space.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one yet.
I bought it digitally. So I haven't watched it yet. I bought that and I bought Scoob, the new Scooby-Doo movie. Scoob. And that was fantastic. My daughter and
I love
watched
Scooby-Doo.
I love Scooby-Doo. So I watched that and that was fantastic. It was really, really good.
God, I remember as a kid seeing those live action ones.
I mean, I grew up watching the reruns of the original version.
You're old.
I am old. I mean, they came out in the 60s. I was not that old, but the reruns were, that was like the heyday. That was the reruns that were running on TV all the time. It was like, oh, Scooby-Doo is on. And so that was my jam. So
The old Scooby-Doo cartoon I always watched. It was an episode where the Three Stooges were in it.
Yes.
I love that episode.
And then there's the pup named Scooby-Doo. That was from the 90s. That was good. It was them as kids.
Yep.
And my daughter and I have gone back and watched those. She loves those. And they do a throwback. There's a lot of Easter eggs and throwbacks to other Hanna-Barbera stuff in Scoob. Like the main bad guy is Oh my God, what's his name? Just watched it. Jeez Louise, Muttley and what was the guy with him name? Dick Dastardly. It was Dick Dastardly and his dog Muttley.
You know, when I was a kid, I'm trying to remember the name of it, but I had a Scooby-Doo game, a computer game, and it was like a mummy game, like they were in ancient Egypt or something, or they were in Egypt and they went into like an ancient tomb and like had to solve this this mystery. And I'm trying to remember what it was called, but I had it as a little kid.
Jinx at the Sphinx.
Yes, thank you. Oh, it was so fun. I love that game.
Jinx at the Sphinx.
Love it.
Yeah, but yeah, Nick Cage was in this movie called The Color Out of Space, and it looked really weird, and it's
I'm not surprised.
I think it's based off of an H.P. Lovecraft story, so I'm like, all right, Nick Cage and H.P. Lovecraft, I'm in. So that's yeah, I'm sure I'll find some time this week to watch it, but it's not like I have anything else to do.
Just seriously.
So what do you want to talk first?
I figured,
and I'm going to put the caveat here is I didn't watch Last Dance last night, so I know. I was like, I'm gonna watch this, and then my daughter wanted to watch Scoob, so I was like, well, let's watch Scoob. So I have not. I've watched the first 8 episodes, not 9 and 10.
Okay. I'll tell you this much.
We can
obviously.
talk it. I just, I may go, at some parts there and there.
Okay, that's fair. Well, I'll tell you this much. I mean, it was pretty straightforward. It went through Game 7 between the Pacers. Obviously, you remember that. It went in detail about, the 98 finals, obviously. And, they went on about, they talked about the so-called reason that Michael Jordan had the flu, which was eating the pizza and getting sick. And obviously the conspiracy theorists are well and alive. And they said in that documentary that when the pizza was delivered to Jordan's room where he was with like his agents or whatever, 5 different delivery people came up to deliver that one pizza. And the one guy was saying, this isn't a good idea. I don't have a good feeling about this. And then Jordan just said, I ate the pizza anyway. And he's like, next thing I was knowing, I was puking my guts out.
Yeah, I saw that on Twitter today. So that's poisoning Michael Jordan. Is that why his eyes are all crazy in the documentary?
Yeah, maybe. Maybe that's why. It was the long-lasting effects of the pizza.
Like
poison pizza.
How many buds have you been smoking, Michael?
Yeah. Just to kind of talk about what they covered, because obviously you were able to watch it. I was not old enough to see it, but a big focal point was that Pacers series, and Reggie Miller was obviously interviewed during this documentary, and he hammered home that while the Bulls won and they didn't deserve to win, he said he thought that the Pacers were still the better team, and I'm sure there were people that were in somewhat agreement of it. But like, I want to know from your perspective, going to that Pacers series, how did you feel facing Reggie Miller and that team? Because that was a good team.
They were a really good team, but it's, honestly, it was very an anti-Chicago feeling. Typically as Chicago fans, we're always, that's it, we're done. And we're very defeatist based on our history of accomplishment. But you know how during the Blackhawks run, you just felt so confident? Like, all right,
yeah.
Perfect example. That Game 7 against the Kings, when you were like, I'm sure you just knew the Blackhawks were going to win, even though they did.
Oh, yeah. Even when they went in overtime.
Yeah, that's exactly how it was. You were nervous, but you knew that it was going to work out in the end. It was like, watching a movie where you're like, oh, man, the damsel in distress is about to get, killed, but the hero comes, the hero's going to come at the last minute and save her. And that's kind of how it was. You just knew, and that's how it ended. Is the Bulls won. I mean, sure, you were biting your nails and probably people smoking extra cigarettes or whatever, but in the end, you knew the Bulls were going to win because they had to. The way that they played down that stretch, you were just like, well, they have to win.
Yeah, and one thing that they spent some time talking about was that really rough Game 3 loss. Was it Game 3 or Game 4 where they lost
I don't remember
on the buzzer beater?
Yeah, I don't remember.
But you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do.
Where Reggie shoved Michael Jordan and made the shot.
Yeah, they were a good team, but they weren't the Bulls. And
right.
I mean, they took them to the brink. Nobody else really had done that. But they didn't have that killer instinct, and they never did. They never were going to have that.
Well, and they talked about too how the Pacers were up 19-7 early in that Game 7. And then after a timeout from Phil Jackson, the Bulls just took over and they just cruised the rest of the way. I mean, the Game 7, I was recently rewatching that Game 7. It was not a good Game 7. It was very sloppy, a lot of bad shots, a lot of bad misses. But, obviously one team had to come out and, the Bulls obviously did. And, the Pacers shot very poorly. The Bulls shot very poorly. The last few minutes of the game, missed shot after missed shot left and right. I mean, if the Bulls would have sunk a few more shots down that last minute, it would have looked like a blowout. But either way, the Bulls took care of business at home. And then, of course, they talked about the NBA Finals in 1997 and 1998 because 97 was the Jordan flu game, the pizza puke game. But, obviously 98 was the last dance, and they were breaking down Jordan's final shot. And watch the replay. He didn't push off. He was already falling down, and that's what everyone was saying. Russell was already falling down.
Yeah.
Watch the side view. He barely touches him.
Yeah, what's the term? Straight up bitches? But it's it's funny though. I read from somebody, like a reporter that had gotten early screeners of the episodes and said that get ready, you're going to rekindle your hate for Reggie Miller. And you know what? I always respected him, and I never hated Reggie Miller. He drove me nuts, but I always respected him as a competitor and as like a rival. John Starks I hated. Isaiah Thomas I hated.
Yeah.
And Isaiah Thomas, it's funny. I'd forgotten how much I hated him. And then when I watched these episodes, the Pistons episodes, I was like, oh yeah, I remember how much I hated him. And it rekindled that hatred. But I don't know if you're going to get me to hate Reggie Miller.
Reggie Miller, here's the thing. Watching the documentary, and this is someone who didn't really watch much of Reggie Miller because, I mean, he was on the Pacers through 2005. I was a little kid in the early 2000s, but in those prime 90s years, I was too young or not born yet to remember. So that's probably why I don't have as much of an emotional attachment. But the thing with Reggie Miller is in the documentary, I didn't think the way he spoke really merited him getting hated that much. Like, and here's the thing. Reggie Miller played with an intensity, and he knew he was driving you nuts, but he wasn't doing it for the sake of acting like, oh, I'm the big, tough, big, bad guy. He was just trying to do it to, be a fierce, competitive player. At least that's how I see it. That's why I think there's a bigger level of respect for Reggie Miller than, like, Isaiah Thomas or any of those Pistons teams.
Yeah, Isaiah Thomas, that, basically, I can't... The Pistons, it's funny because you hate them as a team and you're just like, hate them. But really, you hate Bill Laimbeer and you hate Isaiah Thomas and a couple of other guys. But, I don't think anybody, I don't have hate for Spider Sally. I don't have hate for Dennis Rodman.
Of course, how could you?
I don't have a hate for most of those guys. It's just the guys that I hate, I really hate.
Well, I think the whole thing with me and Isaiah Thomas is after this documentary ran, Isaiah Thomas kind of tried to play the victim move, like we were unfairly portrayed. It's like, dude, you were literally called the Bad Boys Pistons, and you embraced that identity. Like, don't try to just fall back on that now because people called out your crap.
The worst is when he went on, right after that episode aired, he went on a TV show TV or radio show in Detroit, and was like, the Bad Boys, that was racially motivated. I'm like, bruh. That was what you guys called yourself. And literally anybody I've ever met in my entire life that grew up in or near Detroit during that era owned a Bad Boys t-shirt because they were proud of it. So don't give me that revisionist history. It might work if you're preaching to the crybaby fans of your city, like, okay, but you know what? To everybody else, you just look like a crybaby.
Yeah, and I mean, you know what? If you truly, embrace that identity, then you know what? I'd actually have more respect for him if he just continued to embrace that identity, saying, yeah, we were hated. No one liked us. That's who we were. Then, yeah, you're literally you're embracing your identity, whether people like it or not, and you're not backing down. I would at least have, may not like it, but I'd at least have respect for not trying to do revisionist history right there. I mean, seriously. You were the Bad Boys Pistons, for goodness sake.
Yeah, but I'm never going to hate Joe Dumars. Joe Dumars. Hard to hate Mark Aguirre because I went to DePaul.
Right.
So, that's like your guy. Him and Dave Corzine are big accomplishments. But, Isaiah Thomas and Bill Laimbeer, man. To this day, if I ever see Bill Laimbeer, I might just drop whatever I'm holding in my hand and start fighting him on sight, just out of the heated rivalry between them and the Bulls.
The greatest thing is knowing you would probably lose by a long shot, but still just going out and giving that effort would be pretty great to see.
What I have on my side is that man's got to be 60 now. How old is Bill Laimbeer? Bill Laimbeer. Right
Cover
now.
yourself with marinara meatball sauce, and maybe you'll slip around.
Why don't you have his age on there? How old is Bill Laimbeer age? He's 20 years old. He's a senior citizen. I mean, he's big now, but he's always been big, but I feel like I could fight him.
Man, picking on an old man. What have you become?
Well, he'll be 6'11", 250 pounds. So
he'll try to tip him over. He'll just stand still.
I'm just gonna tie his shoelaces together.
I'm gonna give you the beating of your life.
I'll just wait till he beats on me and has a heart attack and then stand up. The rope a dope.
Oh man, you know what would be really weird is if you tried to pick a fight with him and just you look behind you and he's got two massive macho Rocco bodyguards to protect him. And he'd be like, all right, come on, all of you.
At least I'm going to shit talk the whole time. No matter how much of an ass kick I'm taking, I'm talking shit.
They're banging your head against a brick wall and you're still talking it.
Stupid Bill Laimbeer with that dumb face mask of his.
Hey, speaking of which, another Piston I can't hate was, what's his face? Came to the Bulls. Why am I blanking on his name? Oh, Rip Hamilton.
They used to say James Edwards.
No, I'm thinking Rip Hamilton.
Yeah, but he wasn't Bad Boys. He was later.
I know, but still, there are people out there who associate the Pistons with the Bad Boys no matter what. Even all these years later.
Man, I'm just looking at James Edwards. I think he played for everybody. Lakers, Pacers, Cavaliers, Suns, Detroit, Clippers, back to the Lakers, Portland, Chicago. Man, that dude played a long time.
How many years?
10, 22.
No, it's a long time.
James Edwards, the Buddha. Yeah. So I mean, obviously, I can't talk the end. I did see what did it end with, and the rebuild began.
Yep, and they're still rebuilding.
And
I think
it's like the Energizer Bunny of rebuilds.
pretty much. I think the biggest part of the documentary at the end was Michael Jordan saying that he thought there was a way to keep everyone around one more year. He said, I would have stayed if I could. I think Dennis Rodman would have. I think if Phil Jackson could have, if they didn't handle it the way they did. And he said Scottie Pippen might have taken some convincing, but that he believes that they could have done it and stuck around another year. And Jerry Reinsdorf gave the whole, well, from a business perspective, it wasn't going to work out, so we decided to rebuild. And, obviously Twitter wasn't having it, as they shouldn't have had it. I just think the conclusion I draw from all of this is this. I think it's okay to speculate that the run was over after 98. I think it's a shame that they didn't really try and that it ended the way it did. I mean, okay, so you get the band back together, you give it another shot. I think it's okay to argue that run might have been over, even if they did stay around. Michael Jordan was getting old and the miles were piling up on him. Scottie Pippen was having some injury problems at that time. Rodman was at the end of his career, basically. I mean, they went into that Utah Jazz series, as underdogs by some. I mean, I wouldn't call the Bulls underdogs, but there were people thinking that the Jazz could have won that series. I mean, the Jazz had a good team. They thought it was a perfect time for revenge. People thought the Pacers were going to beat them. They were kind of going into these series thinking, well, they're still the Bulls, but, I think there is a very big possibility that the other team might prevail. But, even if it was the end of the run, the fact that they treated Phil Jackson like shit, the way they completely disrespected the players, whether it was Jerry Krause and Scottie Pippen or any of those other people, the way it went down is, well, the last dance wasn't a riding off into the sunset. It was a lot of tension, hurt feelings, and sour feelings towards one another. I mean, it wasn't a glorious ending, even though they got that sixth championship. They were happy, obviously, that they won and they celebrated, but I mean, you think about what was going on deep down in those guys, they didn't want it to end like this. I mean, I guarantee you none of them wanted to ride off into the sunset quite like this. I think that's the biggest takeaway.
Honestly, maybe a hot take here. The biggest villain, I think, and low-key villain, is Jerry Reinsdorf.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Because, he tried to play, I don't know. I mean, I just own the team. I don't know. But you know what is, if he felt that he wanted to keep these people, Phil Jackson, Michael, Scotty, Dennis, anybody else, and he felt that they hated the GM, well, guess what? You replace the GM. If you feel like, oh, the greatest people that our organization has ever had and ever will have, and they feel slighted because of our GM, you double down and say, no, I choose you. I can get another GM. Because you know what? There's a lot of GMs that can win having Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Dennis Rodman, and Phil Jackson.
Well, yeah, because they talked about at the end of the documentary, this is kind of interesting. The whole story about Jerry Krause saying, you have 1 year, no matter what, you're out. Obviously, you know that. Yeah. They said towards the end that Jerry Reinsdorf had pulled Phil Jackson in the office saying, we'll offer you another year after 98, after they won the championship. So what that tells me is Reinsdorf knew exactly what was going on, and he was trying to make amends about the whole thing and, maybe trying to save his butt a little bit from the criticism he was getting, because I think Jerry Reinsdorf knew going into 98, 99 that they were going to get a lot of backlash for what was going on. At the same time, he didn't want to betray his good friend Jerry Krause. And, I think that Reinsdorf, thinking in his Reinsdorf mind that for business reasons, we need to do this rebuild, yada, yada, whether or not he believes that himself or not. I think that he knew that there was going to be a lot of backlash, as there already was. So he tried to go in and say, hey, we can offer you another year despite what happened, despite what Jerry said. And Phil Jackson thought that his time had played out there, that he was, and I don't blame him. If you were treated that way and all of a sudden they say, hey, come back for next year, I'd probably say no too. He said he wanted a break. He said he wanted to, move on. And I think every Bulls fan should respect that.
Yeah, you find a way to pay Scottie Pippen. And you know what? Even if it's not his fair market value, you make a way to pay him. Be like, hey, listen, I know you're underpaid, and you sweeten the pot. It makes him feel like he's wanted, even if you're not paying him market value. Be like, you know what, we're gonna renegotiate here, and you do something. You make Michael know he's wanted. You make these guys understand, that they're wanted because they're winning you titles. Look at how big the Bulls became and how important they became as an organization because of Michael Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
And for business decisions, they threw that all away. Threw it away.
Yeah.
So it's absolutely frustrating. And honestly, another hot take possibly here is I'm excuse me, as much as I would have loved to have the gang got back together and played the next year, I'm sort of glad. It's nice that Jordan goes out undefeated in the finals. It's nice that Jordan goes out as with the title and from the Bulls. And I don't think there's any chance that they win it the next year because, you needed Dennis Rodman. And that next season, Dennis Rodman played 23 games.
Yeah.
The season after that, he played 12 games. The season after that, he was not in the NBA. So he played 25 games after walking away with that title. Played 25 games in his career. Jordan wasn't the same player. Scottie, after he left, he had some decent years there, but the next year he only played 50 games.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier. I think you could make an argument that the run was over. I just think that the way it ended, how it was approached, was what made it bad. And I think you could also argue that they could have tried harder for one more, even if it was over. But if they truly believed it was over, then Krause and Reinsdorf could have taken a much better approach than basically alienating their players and chasing them out the door over the past few years.
Yeah, agreed. It was handled poorly. I just think it would have been a little bit of a hot mess that next year. I think we would have seen, if you look at the start of that season, that last season together, and you look at the way it ended, I think if you make a mark halfway between it, it leans a little closer to the beginning than it does to the end. The way they played. So I just don't think you'd have that good of a team, and I think it would tarnish. It's hard to tarnish 6 titles, but it would have just ended on a sour note. And on a different sour note is the sour note that it ended on was because the organization gave up, rather than losing the luster of all these great players going out on top. So, it sucks that it had to end, and it ended the way it did. I didn't think there was any chance in hell that they were going to win at 7th title. What I would have put, I would have put everything towards is I would have loved to have seen the Bulls play those 2 years with Jordan between the first three-peat and the second three-peat, where they would have played the Houston Rockets in the finals 2 years in a row. That would have been just absolutely, amazing basketball.
Well, there's another question, too, that people were bringing up, and my dad brought this up, too. If Michael Jordan had played those 2 years, would they have won 8 titles?
Yes.
Or would it? You think so?
I think so. Jordan, they make it, the documentary played out like, oh, Jordan was tired. He didn't have any motivation. Jordan would have found motivation. I mean, how many times did they show Jordan manufactured things that slighted him? George Karl didn't say hi to me in a restaurant. That guy told me good game. And you were just like, all right, Jordan would have found a way. It may have been a struggle, and he may, not have been happy, but that man would have found absolute motivation. And I think it would have been spectacular because Hakeem Olajuwon those 2 years was just absolutely unstoppable. He was just unstoppable. And you would have put him against Jordan, the greatest player ever. And, there you go.
Yeah, I don't know if it was much of a mental thing as a physical thing, because Jordan got his ass beat for a while. And, I can't help but wonder if him needing to take some time away and kind of get back was beneficial for him. I don't know. I question that sometimes.
I don't know. I think there would have been an 8-peat. I think there would have been an 8-peat.
Interesting.
It was because the Bulls put out a decent team without Jordan. You put Jordan, 100% back in there. Just it's a tough team to beat, and I think there would have been an 8-peat.
I'm sure they could have won like in those middle years. I just wondered down the road, by the time Jordan played a lot more basketball and was a bit more worn down towards 97, 98, would he still have been able to overcome those Jazz teams? That's what I want to know. Or even the Pacers for that matter.
I don't know. The world may never know.
I also just made a big mistake while we were talking. I decided to look up Tim Floyd in his first year as Bulls coach.
Why did you do that?
Looking at the roster, Brent Barry, Corey Benjamin, Mario Bennett, Keith Booth, Randy Brown, Mark Bryant, Corey Carr, Cornell David, Ron Harper, Charles Jones, what was left of Tony Kukoc, Andrew Lang, Rusty LaRue, Dickie Simpkins, and Bill Wennington.
Why would you do that to yourself?
I don't know.
That's your version of poison pizza.
Yeah, I mean, it pretty much is.
Are you Bulls fan puking right now?
Yes, I am. Bulls fan Tim Floyd puke might be worse than Bills fan puke. Oh man, I mean, you talk about a god awful era.
Tim Floyd.
The guy was just way over his head. He even admits it.
The Bulls have had a bad track record of courting a head coach after having a really good head coach. Like they just have had that bad run. I'm in love with this guy and he's absolutely terrible.
Yeah, I mean, look how much the ownership has loved Jim Boylan, for goodness sake.
Jim Boylan. They still want it. The craziest ownership and Paxson want him there still. Like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
But there's no there's no way Arturas Karnisovas is gonna let that. There's no way.
Big Dave and I were going back and forth on Twitter with this a little bit. And I was like, I'm nervous because he's still here. Until he's fired, he's still here. And he's like, he won't be. And I was like, well, if he does, that means that Paxson's got more influence and power than we were hoping. And that means that AK doesn't have 100% of basketball operations under his control. And Dave assured me that Boylan is gone.
He's as good as gone. I am telling you, he is.
But you had, Phil Jackson, and then you replace him with Tim Floyd. You have Tom Thibodeau, and you replace him with Hoiberg. It's like, why? Why are you falling in love with these terrible coaches? Why is that? Why are you like this?
I mean, we do have to give some recognition to the Bulls hiring the all-time great coach of all time in Vinny Del Negro. I mean, come on.
The Bulls organization hired two different people named Jim Boylan.
It is kind of funny. When I was a kid, I get nostalgic when I hear Scott Skiles. Scott Skiles wasn't bad.
He wasn't good either.
He wasn't good, but he wasn't bad. He was perfectly him and Vinny Del Negro were perfectly mediocre coaches.
The most I guess impressive thing about Vinny Del Negro is the punch he took from John Paxson.
Well, Vinny Del Negro will always be the guy that coached that first round series against the Celtics, and they almost won. That was a great series.
I was at the one game in that series that wasn't close.
Oh, really?
The one that was a blowout. And my buddy Gary, who has season tickets, was like, "You're never coming to a game with me ever again."
Oh, you and Gary went?
Yeah, Gary took me with the season tickets, and that was the one game that it wasn't close. And I was like,
oh, man.
Why is this my luck? Like, even if they lost, but it was like one of those double overtime games. No, it was Sean goes to the game and they get blown out. And Gary, in his rightness, should have never taken me to a game because I am poison. I'm Jordan Poison Pizza.
Vinny Del Negro took a bite of you and he started puking all over the floor.
Vinny Del Negro.
Okay, I want to do a little activity here. I want to do a little fun activity. Okay, here we go. Let's rank. See if we can do this. Since Phil Jackson left, let's rank every coach the Bulls have had since then.
Are we going to include interim coaches?
Nah, we don't have to.
Okay, so we will not include Pete Myers, and we will not include Bill Barry.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So we're gonna rank Tim Floyd, Bill Cartwright, Scott Skiles, first Jim Boylan, second Jim Boylan, Vinny Del Negro, Tom Thibodeau, and Fred Hoiberg.
That's correct.
All right. How are we ranking them? From one top to bottom or bottom to top?
Let's go top to bottom.
Okay, that's easy then. Tom Thibodeau.
Right, that's number one.
That's
Who's your
easy.
number two?
I mean, I guess you probably got to say Scott Skiles.
Yeah, I mean, isn't he he's the only other coach to win a playoff series, right?
Scott Skiles. Yeah.
Three, I think I'd go Scott Skiles too.
Yeah, Scott Skiles. And
three is probably Vinny Del Negro.
Probably.
I mean, think about it. Who's honestly deserving? Like, I mean, Vinny Del Negro. He went 82 and 82 in his time here. He didn't win a playoff series, but he got them to the playoffs multiple times. Not contenders for a championship, but he did get them to the playoffs.
All right, we'll go Vinny Del Negro. So we got Tom Thibodeau 1, Scott Skiles 2, Vinny Del Negro 3. And Vinny Del Negro coached in the NBA after that, so we'll give him that.
Yeah.
So then for
I mean, Fred Hoiberg's the only other one that's gotten them to the playoffs.
Yeah, you got to go Hoiberg. Ugh.
Oh God, if he's your fourth, but it's true.
We're not lying to you. So then after Hoiberg,
This is where it gets dicey.
then I'm gonna go first Jim Boylan.
First, Jim Boylan.
Jim Boylan with an A.
Yeah, I'm between either him or Bill Cartwright.
Bill Cartwright, it was bad, and I love Bill Cartwright. I can't listen to him talk either because it just hurts my throat.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go first Jim Boylan, and that's a rough one.
All right, we could go first Jim Boylan.
Then after that, Bill Cartwright.
Yeah, Bill Cartwright.
So then we are left with second Jim Boylan, Tim Floyd.
That's who we're left with.
Yeah, that's who we're left with. I'm going Jim Boylan is worse. I'm going to go out there and say it.
Me too.
Because, at least Tim Floyd had dog shit talent around him.
Oh, he had nothing. No coach would have won with that roster.
Yeah. So, he was bad. Don't get me wrong. Tim Floyd was bad, but he had nothing to work with. Second, Jim Boylan at least has some talent, and he is just a hot mess. And, what's crazy is people will be like, oh, he gets fired too soon. He's already coached 2 more games than first Jim Boylan.
That's true.
So Tim Floyd got 239 games as head coach. Bill Cartwright got 151. First Jim Boylan got 56. Vinny Del Negro got 164. Thibodeau got 394. Hoiberg got 270 games. And second Jim Boylan got 58 games. And a worse record.
Nothing Jim Boylan does make sense. Where Tim Floyd was just a guy who was way over his head and was just kind of this dude who was friends with Jerry Krause that Jerry Krause really liked because he thought he could mold into a great NBA coach with a young roster. And, part of me kind of feels bad because it's like, well, I mean, Floyd wasn't there to ruin anybody. He'll even tell you later that he just wasn't a very good coach. And like we said, those rosters were god awful.
Oh, man.
But make no mistake, Tim Floyd was not a good coach at all. He was a great college coach, but I mean, not an NBA coach. And you know what? It's hard to be both.
What's funny is, you're like, oh man, this has been a bad run of head coaches. If you take out just a couple of guys, this whole entire organization is just filled with bad coaches. Like, Doug Collins was okay. Phil was great. Doug Collins was okay. Stan Albeck, terrible. Kevin Lockerty, terrible. Paul Westhead, terrible. Rod Thorne, terrible. Jerry Sloan for the Bulls, terrible. Not for the Jazz. Scotty Robertson, terrible. Larry Costello, terrible. Ed Badger, terrible. You have to go back to Dick Motta.
Yeah.
So it's like, you have to go back to the 60s. You have to go back before I was born.
Yeah. I mean,
Dick Motta left before I was born.
Yeah. I mean, no disrespect to Johnny Wright Kerr. I mean, he's one of my favorite broadcasters ever, but obviously didn't see a lot of success under him. And now Dick Motta was their second coach. So, I mean, you look at the all-time Bulls coaches, the top 5 would be obviously Phil Jackson 1. If you're just going by wins, then you would do Dick Motta 2, then probably Thibodeau 3. And then Doug Collins did some good things for the team.
But Doug Collins basically had Michael Jordan and was like, I'm going to properly use Michael Jordan. I don't think he's super special, but still he's on the Mount Rushmore of Bulls coaches because it's a terrible history of head coaches.
I mean, just look at the coaches since Phil Jackson. Only one of them has a winning record. The others are either losing records or you're Vinny Del Negro, who's right at 500. One.
And people could say, well, any team, you can look at a period of time and find some bad coaches. But I want to point out how long this period is. How old are you, Alex?
I'm 26.
You were 4 when this period started.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
This
is over 2 decades.
Yeah, this is over 2 decades. This is 22 years of this. 22 years plus.
Yeah. Yeah.
So honestly, is AK's got a pretty easy job. He just could find somebody to be a coach that's just not terrible. You don't even have to be good. Just find somebody that's not god awful, and it's a success.
Yeah. Okay, and how many of these guys are still coaching in the NBA right now? I mean, Thibodeau isn't anymore. Fred Hoiberg's not. Vinny Del Negro's not. The first Jim Boylan isn't. I don't think Scott Skiles is still coaching. I don't think.
What does Scott Skiles do now?
I remember he most recently served as head coach of the Orlando Magic. He's an American basketball coach and former player.
Nope, he is not coaching anymore.
Because he was with the Bucks for a few years after the Bulls. He was there for quite a bit, and then he was with the Magic for 2, and then since then. Yeah, so he's not a head coach anymore.
Yeah, so
bad. Bad.
Yeah, Bill Barry. Bill Barry was so bad, his Wikipedia doesn't even have his birth date on there.
Oh, really?
It has age 77-78.
You know what else is really, really funny? The first Jim Boylan looks absolutely nothing like the second Jim Boylan.
No, he doesn't. He looks like, honestly, you know what he looks like? Is if second Jim Boylan was trying to be Tom Thibodeau for Halloween.
Oh my God.
You'll never unsee that now.
I won't. Oh man. And you know what's funny? Tim Floyd looks like the most stereotypical Jerry Reinsdorf like type employee. Does he not?
He does. And it's funny because when they hired Hoiberg, I think everybody that lived through the Tim Floyd era went, oh my God, he's hiring Tim Floyd too. And that's really what it was, Tim Floyd too.
Oh, what a sad. When you look at Tom Thibodeau being the best coach the Bulls have had since Phil Jackson, and they've been to one Eastern Conference final, and you just look at the rest, and the only other two that are somewhat close to the top are Scott Skiles and Vinny Del Negro, who are like the definition of mediocre. It's just good Lord.
First, Jim Boylan won an NBA title as a coach. He was an assistant coach for the Cavaliers when they beat Golden State in the finals in 2016.
Yeah, so he's got more rings than how many of these guys?
Most of them.
Yeah. Oh, man.
Most of them.
Oh, man.
He's got his... Well, let's see. Anybody else who won a title? Thibodeau won one.
With Boston, right?
Yeah. So, first Jim Boylan has as many titles as every coach after him combined.
Sheesh.
Oh, wait.
Yep.
No, it's saying Jim Boylan has more. Where the hell was he?
He was with the Spurs.
Yeah, I forgot.
He was with the Spurs.
How did that happen?
I forgot.
Yeah, I take that back. Yeah, he has 3 titles. Can you imagine like a good coach having Jim Boylan on their staff?
Honestly, I think he was just there to get Popovich's coffee or something.
Yeah, but he doesn't even look like he does a good job of that.
I don't know. I don't know how he was on that staff.
He won a title, 2 titles. He was with those Rockets teams that won the 2 titles between the Jordan years. And then he won with the Spurs. So he's been an assistant with the Rockets, the Warriors, the Bucks, the Pacers, the Spurs, and then head coach of the Bulls.
Okay, well, I knew he was with the Spurs for a while. I knew he was on the Bucks too, but man, I didn't realize his success went that far back.
Boylan.
I'm just gonna. By the way, Vinny Del Negro, he actually has a winning record coaching. He's got a .533 win percentage. I'm just saying.
And he's got a head of hair on him.
Mm-hmm. Vinny. Yeah, 3. He spent more time with the Clippers than with the Bulls, and yeah, he took the Clippers to the playoffs twice. He won 56 games in his last year as a coach.
Oh, Vinny Del Negro. So, while we're talking NBA, we've had the star players have their secret meeting about playing this season. And do you think there's going to be a plan that allows the NBA to play any games this season?
I think they're going to try. I just don't know how the logistics are going to add up. That's a tough question to answer for me right now. I think that they resume the season somehow. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. I could see them trying to salvage something maybe before next season starts, but I don't know. Right now I'm not very optimistic.
I mean, honestly, for the NBA, I think it makes sense to figure something out, even if you're playing in empty arenas, because the big chunk of their money comes from television revenue, and you have lost so much television revenue. I think it just makes sense to play games.
Yeah.
Play games. Even if you just go late, and
likely in front of empty arenas, I think.
Just play games because people will tune in on television. I think the NHL it's a little tougher because you do rely on the box office numbers more than you do for NFL and for NBA. It's like Major League Baseball where it's a big chunk of your revenue. And I think it's going to be harder for NHL, but the NHL I think seems to have a firmer plan on what they want to do.
Yeah, they do. They might actually be making progress on it as well.
It's funny because you would think baseball and NBA would be pushing hard, but it seems like NHL is the one that's really pushing. And I don't know if it's fear on their part of missing out so much on the people's minds that, they become the forgotten sport. But it's they really are pushing. They're really pushing, and they've got plans. They're looking to have, just a couple of cities. And I think the logistics for the NHL are a lot harder because the NBA, you could do something where you play a bunch of games in one court in one stadium because you don't need to resurface the floor between games.
Right.
The NHL and the ice, number one is if you go somewhere it's hot and humid, even if there's air conditioning inside that building and you cooling it down, just the humidity and things are going to mess with that ice. You have to resurface it like crazy all the time. It's it's tough. That ice, needs a break, and to play multiple games on it.
I think they tore the ice out at the United Center too, so they'd completely have to relay it down.
Well, they would. I mean, Chicago obviously wouldn't be one of the places because our government is being very proactive to try to stop this. I think it's
true.
They're gonna, it's not gonna be New York. It's not gonna be California. It's not gonna be Chicago. I think it's gonna have to be maybe Vegas or Columbus, because those are states that where their governors are already like, well, okay, we can open up.
Wisconsin is open. I wonder if they play at any of the colleges.
That's a possibility, especially if they're not going to play with fans. They could play on the college ice. And I think the tough part for them too is do all the Canadian players, like, do they have to play in the United States? Because you can't have teams crossing over that border because Canada shut down the border.
Yep.
So, you can't just cross back and forth. So everybody's going to have to stay in the United States.
Or everyone goes to Canada.
I don't know. I don't know if that's going to happen because
I don't think so either. No.
I think they're pretty much shut down.
Well, they are. They are.
So
yeah, they definitely are.
It's going to have to be. I'm trying to think of where, Michigan's shut down.
The Bermuda Triangle?
California's shut down. Anaheim shut down. New Jersey shut down. New York is shut down. I'm thinking Vegas and Dallas maybe.
Yeah, Dallas would be. I mean, that's a big city, big market. That's a big one.
You could probably play there. Florida's open, so you could play at one of. You could play like Tampa, or the Panther Stadium. That might be something because you'd have two stadiums that are fairly close to each other where you could alternate games. Boston's a no-go, Montreal no-go, Toronto no-go, Buffalo no-go, Ottawa no-go, Detroit no-go, Washington no-go, Philadelphia no-go, Pittsburgh no-go, Carolina maybe? Because that's a possibility too. Is if you do Carolina and then both Florida cities, those are real close to each other. You could, as far as travel concerns, and you could have three stadiums rotating games. That's a possibility.
I also think too of some of the markets that are open. There are AHL arenas that are obviously not going to be used now because the AHL is shut down. That they probably have to consider as well.
Is Nashville open? That's a possibility.
Tennessee, I don't know.
They could play. I mean, Arizona, the Coyotes, they're open. So that's it. There's not that many places, and I mean that's. Maybe they do it at two city where they do it in Vegas and Phoenix or wherever the Coyotes play.
The logistics are really, really tough.
Yeah, it's tough. It's real tough. Unless they're just going to do a limited playoffs, but it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like they want to expand the playoffs.
Like 24 teams.
Yeah.
So the Blackhawks would be in it.
You're going to see some dog turd hockey after these guys have not played together in a long time.
Oh, it's going to be great. And what would be even greater is if of all the dog turd hockey teams, the Blackhawks were the dog turd least, so they actually went on a run.
That would be amazing.
Could you imagine if that happened?
We'd be the Corona Kings.
Yeah. All hail us.
I would take it. I don't care. I'm petty. I will take it.
Here's the thing. I will take a Corona victory season. I will accept Corona victory seasons only if it's a Chicago team. If not, it's null and void.
Yeah, if it's either Chicago wins and then it's legitimate, or if anybody else wins, it's an asterisk illegitimate win.
Exactly.
I don't want to hear anybody at me about this because my logic is sound and I'm going to stick with it.
As he pours meatball sauce all over himself.
I'm just rubbing it on my chest.
Oh, yeah.
I'm rubbing it on like Vicks Vapo Rub.
This ain't Ben Gay. This is meatball sauce.
He's like, what's he doing? Is he rubbing liniment on him? No, he rubs himself with meatball sauce after games. Like he didn't even play in the game. He just watched it. Yeah, you gotta work out those muscles.
Oh man, yeah, I'm totally with you on that.
Oh my god, you know what I need to? Is I need like a cannon that shoots meatball sauce. Like, bring out the meatball sauce cannon.
Pew! It even has that old-fashioned lighter, like with the fuse.
That's essentially, I just legitimately and accurately described myself at the first Bulls Stanley Cup rally. That was me.
Bulls Stanley Cup rally?
The Blackhawks,
Wow.
the Blackhawks Stanley Cup rally it was 1,000 degrees and I was in a hockey sweater and they make me itch. So I had to wear a shirt underneath it and it was 1,000 degrees
man.
and there was 8 million people there pushed up against me and I didn't care. And then no joke, as soon as it was over, I got on the L and I went to work. Sweaty and stinky, and I didn't care because the Blackhawks had won and I went to the rally.
Well, I remember I was watching that on TV. I remember how hot it was that 2010 day. In fact, that was one of the last. 2010 was like the last days of being able to tape something on TV, and I still have that rally like on an old VHS tape.
You're getting old. You taped something on TV with a VHS player.
Yeah, I did 10 years ago. Yeah,
true story. When I was a kid and we wanted to hear a song, it's like we would wait till it was played on the radio, and then we'd have another radio with a tape deck on there, and we'd hit record and record it from one radio to the next, and then listen to that. So
pirating the old way.
You would have like DJ talk over it. You'd miss the first 9 seconds of the song because you were busy scrambling and you had all the feedback from radio to radio, but that's how you had your favorite songs.
Love it. Love it.
Ye olden days. Now people are like, just got it on Spotify.
Yeah, right.
And
yeah, just
remix.
pull it up on your phone. Yeah.
I've got 9 remixes. I had to wait till Casey Kasem played it, brah.
Yeah, you had to be patient with that stuff. And you had to just get it at the right time.
I know, you'd have to listen to the radio all day, knowing that they played that song 600 times, but you just had to be ready.
Just had to be ready.
I know it. You'd call the radio station and request it. Play that Bon Jovi jam. Play that Beastie Boys song.
You call in with a different voice each time.
They don't catch on. Yeah, we have caller ID, sir. We have caller ID, sir. No, I'm just a lot of people calling from the same number.
You talk to a pirate, next time you'll talk to a doctor.
True story is my best friend and I used to work at a pasta sauce of the month club in the warehouse.
Are you serious?
Serious as a heart attack. We worked for a pasta sauce. We worked in a pasta sauce warehouse.
And so, Sean, stop bathing in the product.
But my best friend, we were the only 2 people that worked in this warehouse. So like we were in college age and like 2 best friends working there. Like legitimately, it was just messing around. We would call Boers and Burns. No, it was Boers and McNeil and Boers. We would call.
Oh, wow. Old school.
We would call McNeil's and Boers every day, and we would fax them from the fax machine, and we called ourselves Fritz and Smitty. And like several times they would mention us on the radio, be like, yeah, we got a question from Fritz and Smitty. And it was like, yes, they mentioned our alter egos. And the alter egos that we made up just to call the stupid radio station with a fake Chicago accent.
First of all, that's great. Second of all, the fact that you said you faxed them. Holy crap.
We faxed them. Showed them the Carfax.
Show them the Carfax.
Showed them the Carfax. We made cardboard instruments, not just guitars, but we had the microphone and we had drums on a riser that we made.
Jeez, you went all out. Nice.
We did, and got paid for it all.
That's great. Meatball. Of course you did.
Oh, we did. I remember we listened on the radio to the Kerry Wood 20 strikeout game, and
oh, cool.
And yeah, we listened to that on the radio. So we stopped working for, once we realized there was a lot of strikeouts, let's stop this for a while. And we just sat there and listened on the radio, watching the radio, because you don't need to look at the radio to know what's going on. But we would just stare at the radio, but like, that's not work. Let's pay attention to what's going on the radio. And that's
listen to the radio.
And I think Jiggets and North were they the morning show at the time? It was Jiggets and North. Those are the heydays.
Man, I was 4 years old. I just turned 4.
Yeah, and I was getting paid to put some pasta sauce in a box and listen to Kerry Wood and play cardboard guitar.
Was it a good paying job, or was it minimum wage?
It was somewhere in between. It wasn't good, but it wasn't minimum wage. But one time there were a lot of strange things, because like the neighborhood was not that far from Cabrini Green, and where it is now, it's a really nice neighborhood. But at the time, it wasn't that nice of a neighborhood, and we'd always get weird characters.
Oh, I bet.
There was a guy who drove up once, and we would get a lot of guys trying to get pallets, because they would just, you got any pallets, and they would take the pallets and then they would sell them for like $1 or $2 to another place, and that's how they made their money. You sell 100 pallets in a day, and boom, there you go. And so he drives up with this truck with pallets, and he's like, "You guys got any pallets?" And normally we're just so used to it, and just like, nah. And we looked, I'm like, what's going on with that guy's arm? Like it looked like he was bleeding. So we kind of walk up, and we're like, okay. It looked like some sort of zombie movie. He had like a chunk out of his forearm, like a chunk.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like a raw. It was like a zombie. It was a Walking Dead chunk out of his arm. And it was actively just bleeding all over the place. And we're like, what is going on? So we're like, hold on, we got to ask our boss, if we got any. So we just really went up and got the boss, because you got to see this dude. Like, this dude is legit, like, got a bite out of his arm. And we come back down, and he's got his forearm in his mouth, and he's just gnawing at his own arm, going, and boss goes, "What's up, arm chomper?"
Oh my God.
So he was forever known as Arm Chomper. He just chewed a hole in his arm, like a bite. There was a bite-sized mark out of his arm.
Ew.
If this would have happened later, I would have naturally assumed he was on bath salts, but I didn't know what that was at that time. So I was like, this guy's on something, man. He took a bite out of his own arm.
That is freaking. Ugh. Wow, that's a weird story. Pour some meatball sauce on that.
Let's dip some pasta up in there.
Dear God.
All right, what else we have to talk about?
We got to talk about the Bears schedule.
Bears schedule. So the Bears schedule is out, and it was out last week. We didn't have a show. We are going to be talking about it now. We have the schedule, and to nobody's surprise, the Bears are playing the Cleveland Browns in the preseason.
Shocking.
They play them every year. They play the Broncos every year.
Yep. Yeah, the Broncos and the Browns, you could always guarantee them playing those two.
I don't know why, but they will be playing the Browns on August 15th. I don't know if fans will be there.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering, will they do preseason games, or you think they'll say, hey, how about we just go to whoever's practice facility and we just play the game on the field, closed doors?
I mean, I think they'll want to do it at a stadium where you can broadcast it because, they still get paid for the broadcasting. So I would be shocked. They'll probably play it at the stadium. I wonder if they'll test run, like limiting the seats, every third seat or whatever. That's a possibility because, it's at least get that out of your way because you're only playing 2 home games anyway. And the Bears
maybe.
Because the Bears home games for the preseason are August 15th against the Browns and August 29th against the 49ers. So, I mean, you've got 2 August games. The other 2 are the 22nd and September 3rd against the Broncos and the Titans. So, honestly, you're 2 games, get that under your belt, see how that goes. Because I don't even know if the city and the state are going to let them have home games with fans in there.
Well, that's kind of what I was alluding to. I mean, I just wonder if there was a way, if let's say you set up like on a practice field, but you were still able to get the cameras and everything and have it televised. I mean, obviously they want to televise it. I don't know if they'd be able to play in all the venues or not, even without a crowd.
It's tough. I mean, I don't know if the practice facility is set up for having cameras like that, for television cameras. So you might have to have it at Soldier Field, but just no fans, which is going to be weird. But I don't know how. I mean, Cook County right now has more positive COVID tests than any other county in the United States.
Yeah. I have trouble thinking that there's going to be preseason at Soldier Field with crowds at least.
Yeah, because the troubling part is that once you get into the regular season, so the first home game for the Bears isn't until September 20th.
Right.
So we're almost October, but towards the end of the season is when typically illnesses start taking stronghold again, is start November, October, November. Mm-hmm. So you get a couple games in before what's typically flu. I know COVID-19 is not a flu, but what flu season is. So virus, the ebbs and flows of virus in the weather.
It's the perfect recipe for sicknesses in general.
Yeah. So you're going to, probably see a peak come, sometime in October. And then, you're looking at, one game, I guess. Yeah, you just have a lot of games left where who knows if you're going to have fans at the end, where they might have to cancel having fans in the stadiums because, by the time you get to Halloween, the Bears have a lot of games left because Halloween is like the halfway point of the season.
Right.
And the Bears don't have a bye until week 11. That's late.
Yeah, which it's late, but I like it from a season perspective. I like it better than having it like week 3.
Yeah, I like it. Early on, you're just like, oh, that's so stupid. But I don't know why. Like, why can't they just have it like, I don't know. Why can't the Bears luck out and have it like week 9 or 10 every year?
I know, right?
Like, give us a break here, schedule makers. Give us a break. But who knows? Who knows? But let's go through the schedule here. And
we're going to do win-loss for each?
We are going to do win-loss. I'm going to write this down.
Because I got mine written down. I got my record right here. I'm curious to see how mine compares to yours.
All right. I haven't written anything down, so I legitimately just got out a piece of paper, and I tested a pen here. So week 1, Bears at Detroit. I'm going Bears victory.
Yeah, I'm going to go Bears win too. I think the Lions are going to be better than some people might think, but I think at the end of the day, our defense is going to be good enough to stop them.
I don't think their defense is going to be very good. And I just don't have Matt Stafford is a good quarterback. I just don't have confidence in him to win. That's where I put that. And I think this is the poop or get off the pot year for Matt Patricia.
Yep, absolutely.
And I didn't see. It's funny. A lot of people are like Matt Nagy on the hot seat. Why wouldn't they say Matt Patricia on the hot seat?
He should be on the hot seat a lot more than Matt Nagy.
Yeah, a lot more than Matt Nagy. Because Matt Nagy's worst year would be a good year for Matt Patricia in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
supposed to be a defensive guru, and
yeah, Matt Nagy in his worst year went 500.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay. Week 2, Giants at Chicago. That's a win.
I'm gonna go win there. Yeah, I think the Giants just aren't very good yet.
The Giants are they're not even close to being good, and I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't think they've found their quarterback.
Yeah, I'm not so sure either.
I have a feeling that the Giants are going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL, and I think they are going to try to draft Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah, I could see it. I could definitely see it.
I don't think they've found their quarterback of the future because that guy is a fumble machine. Like, when he's not fumbling or throwing interceptions, I mean, he's like all right, but he's a turnover machine, and you can't have that in the NFL.
Right.
And I don't think you're gonna have a good enough running game to beat the Bears, especially in week 2.
I agree.
Week 3 at Atlanta. I'm going win.
I'm going win as well. I just think the Falcons are kind of sputtering right now. There's no doubt they have some talented guys, and I think they're going to need to prove a lot this year, but right now, I'm just not going to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, they have to prove something to me. And that team, I don't think they're a not talented team. They're just not. I think they have talented players. I just don't think they're a talented team as a whole. They don't do anything well. Like where you're like, oh, that's their thing. I think their team just lacks identity. You've got a good quarterback. Like, you can't put together a team though, and I don't see them as a huge threat, other than being a road game for the Bears. If this was a home game, I would absolutely put a lock on the Bears. Just being a road game for the Bears is the only equalizer, but I'm still going to go Bears.
Me too.
So win. So I have the Bears at 4-0 in the first quarter of the season. So that's
4-0. We only went through 3.
Did we? Oh, yeah, you're right. So,
yeah.
Colts. That's going to be a tough game. I think that's going to be a tough game.
I have that as a loss.
I'm going to go win because it's at Soldier Field. I think it's a loss if it was in Indianapolis. I think they're a lot better than they played last year, and had they had their Andrew Luck play quarterback last year, I think you would have seen a much different team.
I think they could have been in the AFC Championship if that were the case.
I don't know if they would go that good, but I think they're a solid team, and you're bringing in a veteran quarterback, and I think my saving grace is they're playing at Chicago, and you're going to have a much better pass rush, and I think you're going to get to him because he's a statue quarterback. So I think that's the difference. I'm going Bears. Bears win.
I'm still going a loss.
That's okay. So you have the Bears 3-1 after 4 games. I have them at 4-0. So 4-0 in the first quarter of the season. Alex. Let's see. Sean, Alex. All right. The next game is Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
I also have that as a loss, and I am not really buying this whole hype train, to be honest with you. But the Bears, no matter what they do, they could just never beat Tom Brady. And I feel that being a game where Tom Brady pulls out some magic late and they lose a close one.
Yeah, it's going to be some bad play, and Tom Brady makes it, and it's going to be some sort of magic. And I hate Tom Brady. It's going to be, you know what it's going to be? It's going to be like a missed tackle and Gronkowski runs 40 yards for a touchdown.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. I could totally see something like that.
I have it as a loss as well for the Bears.
Okay.
Week 6 at Carolina.
I got that as a win.
I have that as a win as well. You don't have a quarterback.
Yeah, you're in a transition mode. Riverboat Ron is gone, and the Bears have had the Panthers' number over the past few years.
Yeah, I don't see the Bears losing that one, especially after I think it's going to be a heartbreaking loss to the Buccaneers, and I have it as their first loss of the season. So at that point, they're 4-1. I think they come in and take care of business against the Panthers. You have them coming off of 2 losses, back-to-back losses. I think there's no way they win or they lose against Tampa or Carolina. There's no trap game because we both have them coming off a loss.
Yeah, I agree.
Then we go to at the Rams.
I'm going to go optimistic and say that's a win. I just don't think their offense is very good. I think the Bears are going to be able to neutralize it enough for them to win.
I'm going to go loss. I don't know why. Because I don't think I don't think the Rams are that good. Honestly, they've got a suspect quarterback. I don't know what their running game is going to look like. I think their defense is taking a step back.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a trap. I think this is the trap game.
Okay.
So I have them as a loss there. You have a win.
I'll tell you one thing, though. I would not be completely shocked if they lost this game. I'm still picking it as a win, but I would not be shocked if they lost this one.
Week 8, New Orleans Saints.
I'm going to go a loss.
I'm going loss too.
Yeah, I don't know. After watching last year, and I know last year was last year, but I just think the Saints, until further notice, at least in the regular season, are going to be one of the forces in the NFC.
Yeah, I think they're just too tough with Drew Brees. And this is an assumption that Drew Brees is healthy.
Right.
And let's see. So after halfway point of the season, we both have them at 5-3.
Yeah, pretty similar.
So week 9, it's at Tennessee.
I am putting this as a loss. I just think they're going to get outcoached in this game, and I think that they're going to use the run game. The Bears are very good at stopping the run, but I think the way they run their offense, they're going to do that thing where they're just going to tire the Bears defense out, and then they're not going to allow the Bears to do much offensively, and they're going to win later in the game.
I put the Bears winning because I have them at back-to-back losses with the Rams and the Saints. The Rams and the Saints, and I think Tennessee, I thought, was a really well-coached team. I didn't think they were a particularly talented team. They were just very well-coached. I think they were beatable. And I think their quarterback game is really suspect still. I'm not a big believer in their quarterback. I think the Bears get to them, and it's a very low-scoring affair, but the Bears pull that out.
Okay.
Week 10, Minnesota at Chicago.
I got that as a win. I think the defense will put Kirk Cousins on his butt again. Until further notice, I don't really see the Vikings having much success against the Bears at Soldier Field.
Yeah, until they can beat the Bears, they can't beat the Bears.
Right.
And we've got the juju on them like the Packers have on us. And
Right.
I'm going to ride it. So win for the Bears. And that's, even when last year when the Bears weren't very good and the Vikings were supposed to be very good, the Bears played against them very well. And you saw they couldn't put the running game together. Their quarterback looked terrible. So until further notice, I'm not a believer in the Vikings being able to beat the Bears.
The Bears have 2 wins at Soldier Field since like 2008, I think.
The Vikings?
Yeah, the Vikings.
Yeah, so I'm not a believer, and I'm going to go Bears. Week 11 is the bye. Week 12 at Green Bay.
All right, here's my overly optimistic upset pick. I think the Bears are going to go to Lambeau Field and beat them. I can't believe I'm saying it. I never thought I'd say it, but gosh darn it, they can't keep that bullshit mojo up against us for that much longer, can they? The funny thing is, we've had very little success against Green Bay overall. But if you actually look at the past 20 years, the games they have won against Green Bay, more of them have been in Green Bay. They've been able to pull out some upset wins up there every now and then. And I could see them doing it for some reason. I'll probably be wrong, but that'll be my upset pick of this year. I think they're going to go into Green Bay and beat them.
I have them winning as well. I think it's finally time. I don't think the Packers are very good, and I think they made a mistake not drafting a weapon for Aaron Rodgers in the first round. They didn't really do anything to help him, and he's another year older, and that does not mean he's going to – it's just there's things he couldn't do last year that he would normally do. And he showed some level of being human.
Mm-hmm. Age does that.
Even that first game against the Bears, they didn't do anything except one series. One series is all it took, and they beat the Bears.
Which was really just 2 catches.
Yeah, the Bears really did a good job defensively of shutting him down.
Both times.
I think the Bears shock the NFL, shock the Packers fans, and they go into Lambeau and they win.
Yeah. I'm with you.
All right, so week 13, Detroit comes to Chicago.
I think the Bears win that one. Again, it's just, until further notice, I yet to see the Lions beat Matt Nagy.
All right, so at this point, in that quarter of the season, third quarter of the season, I have them going 4-0. You have them going 3-1. I have them at that point 9-3. You have them at 8-4.
Mm-hmm.
It's both very good records. Week 14. Houston comes to Chicago.
I think the Bears are going to win that one, and I know that it's going to be Deshaun Watson revenge season, yada yada yada, but Bill O'Brien tore that team apart.
That team, I think you're going to see Deshaun Watson do really good things. So he's going to rub it in the Bears' faces that they could have had him, but the Bears are going to win the game.
Yeah, I could see it.
I think he's going to put up a lot of yards, maybe not that many points, but a lot of yards, and he's going to do some great things. And we're like, man, we could have had this guy.
Yeah.
Week 15 at Minnesota.
I think the Bears lose that one. I think Minnesota is going to be right there in competition with the Bears, and they're going to pull that win out. I mean, I know that Matt Nagy hasn't lost to the Vikings, but if I think there's going to be a time where Matt Nagy loses to the Vikings, it's going to be that week.
I'm going to say Bears beat the Vikings until the Vikings can beat the Bears. I'm not going to pick them. Same thing with the Lions. I'm not going to pick them to beat the Bears. And I know they had the Bears number for a while, but after that point, till they can beat the Bears, I'm not picking them.
All right.
And it took a lot for me to pick the Bears to beat the Packers, because I think that they finally have it. But Vikings, no confidence. Give them a vote of no confidence.
All right.
All right, Week 16 at Jacksonville.
I think they win that. I just don't think Jacksonville's very good.
I don't think they're very good either. I have that as a win. That brings us to Week 17, Packers in Chicago.
I think it's a loss. I think it's either going to be the division's on the line and Aaron Rodgers somehow finds a way to break our hearts again, or the Bears are going to have things clinched and they're going to be resting their starters. But either way, I think it's a loss.
I think it's a loss. I don't think they can beat the Packers twice in a season.
No, and I mean, the Bears have, 2 wins against them at Soldier Field in like the last 12 years or something.
It's not a very good number.
No. They have 3 wins against Aaron Rodgers at Soldier Field.
So I have in the fourth quarter going 3-1. You have them 2-2. I have them at 12-4. You have them at 10-6, which seems a lot more reasonable. So somewhere in there, the Bears need to lose 2 more games. But I think 12-4, even meatball me, it's tough for me to go, man, 12-4. I'm just going by the numbers, and I think the schedule really helps them out.
Yeah, I think they have a favorable schedule. Now, here's the thing. If 12-4 seems steep to you, I want you to go back to your wins and maybe just choose one. Choose one win where you could say, well, maybe they could really lose.
Packers.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. That's fair.
I could see that one. I have them beating Tennessee. That could be a loss.
Now, one of my keys every year, usually, is because this always seems to happen. You pick one game where the Bears upset, where people think they're going to lose, and then you pick one game the Bears, everyone thinks they should win, and they absolutely should win, but they end up losing, because that happens every year. I have my pick for the upset win in Green Bay, but my upset loss one, I don't know if I really picked one. Really. But I guess if I were to pick one, maybe it would be I don't know. Maybe they go into Carolina and they poop the bet against the Panthers team.
So you're saying a win that they should win is the upset loss?
Right. Like, let's go back the last few years. Last year, everyone thought they were going to beat Oakland. They didn't. And then a lot of people thought the Cowboys were going to beat them, but they won.
All right, here's my 2. My upset, that the game that they should have won and everyone's shocked that they didn't, and the game that nobody thought they would win, that they're going to, and that they are going to win. I'm going to say week 1 at the Lions. Is that one, Rick? What the hell? We start off 0-1, losing to the Lions?
Yeah.
And the one I have them that they could win, and you're like, nobody thought they were going to win. Week 5, Tampa Bay.
Okay. All right. I could dig that.
So yeah, I'm gonna revise this. I'm gonna say, either Tennessee or the first Green Bay game they lose. So I'm gonna knock the Bears down to 11-5. That still seems really good. That's a win the division.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be a tight race, because I think every team in the NFC North has at least a good enough roster to be competitive.
Possibly. I mean, I don't know what I'm going to get from the Lions. Stafford's another year older. Like, I don't trust their defense. The Packers didn't do anything to help themselves, and they really struggled offensively last year. You've got a quarterback, I get he wants to play into his 40s, but not many guys can do that. Just because you say you want to doesn't mean you can. There's a lot of guys. If you could put together a Hall of Fame roster in the NFL of players that said they wanted to play to a certain year and they couldn't, and they're Hall of Famers. It just, you know what? Father Time.
It's different in the NFL.
Father Time decides when you're done.
Right. Yeah, especially in the NFL.
Tom Brady has somehow magically defied age, but just because you want to doesn't mean you can. You might play to 40, but the league may say, nah, bro, you can't play anymore, or you go to a bad team and you just get beat up.
If you go back and you watch Green Bay last year and you just watch Aaron Rodgers, it's obviously foolish to say he's gone bad now or he's not even good, but you can definitely tell he's not the prime Rodgers from 2010 to 2016. Part of me thinks that, in addition to age, that shoulder injury he had in 2017, I think that kind of took a little toll on him.
Yeah, look at Peyton Manning. That guy was one of the best players ever. And that, he won a Super Bowl in Denver, but was
the defense won that Super Bowl.
The defense won that Super Bowl indeed. He literally, it's weird to say that you had one of the probably the top 5 quarterbacks ever, and he was a game manager for you.
Now, well, when you're 40 years old, I guess.
And, he rode off the sunset with a Super Bowl title, but you know what? It was not a pretty thing. I mean, how many people were saying that, they should start the backup for the Super Bowl?
Right.
And it's a garbage can backup too.
Yeah, exactly.
So it just sometimes is Father Time and just decides when you're done for you. You don't have a say in it. There's a lot of guys that would have loved to have played more. Dick Butkus, I'm sure, would have loved to play more, but you know what? That guy took some abuse.
Yes, he did. Old-time football.
Eli Manning, don't you think he would have loved to have had another year or two as the quarterback of the Giants?
Oh, of course.
And you know why he retired? It's not because he wanted to retire. It's because he saved himself the embarrassment because he knew nobody was going to give him a job.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he was done in 2016, frankly.
Yeah. He wanted to play more. It's just time told him no. Cam Newton doesn't have a job right now.
And he was an MVP a few years ago.
He was an MVP a couple of years ago, and nobody's even giving him a job.
No.
So, you know what? Sometimes the league decides for you. Sometimes Father Time decides for you. Sometimes the league just points out that Father Time is one when you didn't realize it. So Aaron Rodgers, maybe he's a guy that can play into his 40s, but here's my reservation of. I'll give you my one reason why I think he can play into his 40s and one reason why I think he can't.
Okay.
Why I think he can't is I think he relies too much on his arm talent and big playability. And if you watch Tom Brady, those have gone. Tom Brady has a hard time with those big plays. Tom Brady now has to beat you with his knowledge of the system and being able to outsmart you.
Sure.
And I think, not saying that Aaron Rodgers isn't smart and knows the system, but not to the level that Tom Brady is like an assassin like that. Aaron Rodgers has always had trouble beating people down the field, dinking and dunking. It's always beating you when you make a mistake and he capitalizes on it with a big play. And where you're going to see it happen is you're going to have a defender fall down or something like that. A blown coverage, and you're going to have a guy wide open running down the field, and he's going to short it, or he's going to throw it off, or throw it out of bounds, or just a bad ball, and everyone in Green Bay is going to be like, when they see it release, they're going to be like, touchdown, and it's going to be an incomplete pass, and everyone's going to look around at each other and be like, the hell happened? And that's where that first chink in the armor is going to be. and you're gonna see teams go, I'm not afraid of him beating me with that deep ball as much as I was, or at all. And you're gonna start defending. You blitz him more, and where you were concerned to blitz him before because getting beat on big plays, you're gonna start blitzing him more. You're gonna get more hits on him, and that's how. And you can't recover from that. And he's always been a guy that has a hard time beating you dinking and dunking. And that's where you have success against him. And Tom Brady will dink and dunk you to death. That's why I don't think he can play as long as Tom Brady. The reason why I think he can is because he's stupid Aaron Rodgers, and it's just going to stick it to the Bears.
Yep.
And that's why he'll play.
There's nothing else you have to say.
But I mean, all rational thought and logic and reason just says I don't see it, and it doesn't take away. And it's not a knock on him. He's a Hall of Fame quarterback. He's been fantastic. He was arguably the best quarterback in the NFL in a time when Tom Brady was winning championships. Not many people can say that, but I think time is going to catch up to him way more than it did to Tom Brady.
Yeah, and I mean, you got to remember too, Tom Brady didn't have multiple collarbone injuries.
Yeah,
I think that's important.
And plus, you've got a tough opening to your schedule. For if you're Green Bay too. You start off at Minnesota.
That'll be a great matchup.
Those two have gone back and forth at each other's throats, and it's funny because the Bears have really had the number of the Vikings. The Vikings have played the Packers really tough.
Mm-hmm.
Week 2, Detroit. Detroit is another team that has played Green Bay tough. Week 3, they go to New Orleans. I don't see a way that Green Bay beats New Orleans in New Orleans. So
that'll be hard.
There's a legitimate chance that Green Bay could come home to play Atlanta being 0-3 to start the season. They could be week 4. They could be getting ready for kickoff of week 4 and be 3 games behind the Bears.
Or it'll be the other way around because that's just how luck goes with these two teams.
It's not luck. It's just voodoo magic.
Yeah.
And they have a week 5 bye, which is not a favorable one.
No.
Then they go to Tampa Bay, to Texas, then the Vikings again, then to the 49ers. That's a tough first 9 games of the schedule, man.
Yes, it is.
It is. It's funny. We talked about how the Bears went 12-4 Matt Nagy's first year, and then last year they really struggled. And what it is a lot of it is there was definitely the Bears were not nearly as good, but they played a tougher schedule, and when you play tougher teams over and over, it really takes its toll. And if you're a team if you're an elite team, if you're the Kansas City Chiefs or somebody like that, you can play those tough games and not have it take its toll. But if you're one of those teams that you're hanging on to being good by the skin of your teeth, which I think the Bears were 2 years ago because they had an elite defense, they had a mediocre offense. So they were, it took some luck and some good fortune to get that to that point.
Remarkable bill of health was one of them.
Yeah, remarkable bill of health. And so the next year is you didn't have that good health, and some of those ones where it just you start off on a bad streak and bad football, you start getting frustrated, you play worse football, you start playing worse football, you start getting more injured. And honestly, I'm a big believer in that is when you're the team that's dominating, you usually have less injuries. And I don't have any statistics to back that up, but it just watch the teams that are just winning, they don't have the injuries. You start seeing injuries when you're not playing well, you're struggling, and I don't know why that is, but you see that. And, you start struggling, you start having more injuries pile up, you start playing worse, you start having more injuries pile up, you start getting frustrated. And then those are the years you usually have the early bye. So you have the early bye, and then you're like, man, I've got to play so many games in a row before the end of the season. It's tough.
Yeah, it is.
Then they get Jacksonville at home, but then they go to the Colts. And like I said, I think that I would have the Bears lose at the Colts.
Me too, definitely.
Then they go to the Bears, to the Eagles, home against the Bears, home against the Eagles, to Detroit, home against the Panthers, home against the Titans, then to Chicago. So they don't even get they get Carolina at home. They don't even get lucky with Jacksonville at home. They don't even get lucky with some of the tough games being at their home stadium. They're going to the Colts, to the 49ers, to the Texans, to the Buccaneers. I don't know. I think this is the Bears division this year.
Well, let's hope. Let's hope.
Was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
No, I think I've said my piece.
Oh, you know what? There was one more thing I wanted to mention. I don't know if you saw, ESPN had all their experts rank the top players in the NBA history, and they released their top 10. And the lady who was picked number 1 overall in the women's NBA draft scoffed that Kobe Bryant was 9th. Kobe Bryant was a very, very good basketball player. I don't know if you saw the list. Did you see the top 10 list?
I know it was there. I didn't really pay much attention to it, to be honest.
I'm going to read you the top 10 list, and you tell me who in that list Kobe Bryant replaces. Start with number 1, Michael Jordan.
No.
Number 2, LeBron James.
No.
Number 3, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
I don't know. I don't really have the stats in front of me, and that was well before my time.
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar played from 1969 to 1989 and averaged 25 points, 11 rebounds a game. He won 6 MVPs, 19-time All-Star, 6 NBA championships.
Yeah, I guess I wouldn't put him over.
And he's the all-time NBA leading scorer.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
Number 4, Bill Russell, who won 11 NBA titles in his 13-year career. And while playing against Wilt Chamberlain.
Yeah, that's pretty impressive.
You have Magic Johnson, number 5. Number 6, Wilt Chamberlain. Number 7, Larry Bird. Number 8, Tim Duncan. Then 9, Kobe, 10, Shaq.
I might put Kobe over Bird and Duncan, and who was the other one?
Wilt Chamberlain?
Maybe not him, but I'd put him ahead of Duncan.
I could see him go against Duncan. Larry Bird played, he was averaged 24 points, 10 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals a game, 3-time MVP. And it was MVP 3 consecutive seasons. The only 2 other people that have ever done that, Wilt Chamberlain, Bill Russell, and LeBron James are the only ones that have ever done that. Kobe, he has the points are about the same. Larry Bird has twice as many rebounds a game, 2 more assists a game, more steals per game, 3 times as many MVPs. I don't know, man. It's you didn't live through Larry Bird. Larry Bird was a wizard. He was the foil to Magic Johnson. great friends, but they were just like, you know, there was the puncher and counterpuncher, and I could see moving him ahead of Tim Duncan, who...
Yeah, I don't think you can convince me that Tim Duncan is better than Kobe Bryant. You just can't.
And Tim Duncan is basically the most fundamentally sound basketball player ever.
Right.
Boring as all get out, but the man was just a phenomenal basketball player. Just nothing,
no question.
Nothing exciting. But he did lead the Spurs to 5 titles. Other than that, I can't in all good conscience put him above Larry Bird. I can't put him up against Wilt Chamberlain, because for how many years did people say Wilt Chamberlain was the greatest player of all time? The guy averaged over 30 points in a game and 23 rebounds a game.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
He played from 1959 to 1973 and averaged 23 rebounds and 30 points a game. Bill Russell, Magic Johnson, he was Magic Johnson. He revolutionized the game of basketball. You know, before Michael Jordan came along, like, Magic Johnson was the one who changed the game. You know, he was the man almost averaged a triple-double for his career. Bill Russell, you know, he averaged almost 23 rebounds a game, and he was probably the greatest defensive player in basketball history. He won 5 MVP awards and 11 titles. Kareem's the best. He's the scoring king. And, you know, LeBron is great. You know, he drives me crazy. And then Michael Jordan is I don't think you can have somebody that gives you a serious argument and says Michael Jordan is not the greatest basketball player ever, because, you know, if you asked everybody else in this list, they would probably be like, who's saying I'm better than Jordan?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know, man. I get it. She was close with Kobe, but trying to be rational here is, you know, maybe you could move him up to 8, and I don't even know how that's a knock. How is putting a guy in the top 10 basketball players of all time a knock on somebody?
I don't think so. I don't think it is.
If somebody called me the top 10 of anything for all time, man, I'd be stoked. I'll even take.
Yeah,
I'll take
sure.
10. I don't care. I'll take 10.
Yeah, top 10. That's a lot of players and very small small sample of the best.
You know, I mean, honestly, like, Shaq being number 10, that's the one that sort of gets me. I mean, he was great. 4-time NBA champion. Averaged double-double through his career. I just think I lived through that era, and I thought Akeem Olajuwon was a lot better. But okay, but I don't know, the first 7, that seems okay with me.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right, well, I think that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please make sure you hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, TuneIn app, Spotify, all of them. Just hit subscribe. Share this podcast with your friends. That's how we grow the show. Follow us on social media at ShyFanPat1, at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com. And thank you guys so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like number New Yorkers. Smoking crack is not legal on planes.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing down,